It goes without saying that the Mafia had a strong impact on media. With that era, we've created some of the most iconic movies to have touched the earth, and characters that are now immortalized due to their impactful effect on not only the movie, but the world. Vito Corleone, or some may know Don Corleone, but better known as the Godfather, is our prime example. Now, the movie itself held so much influence for the future movies to come, but Don Corleone's character is one that we'll almost see as much as the elements recreated from that movie. His character has been referenced in so many forms of media, and anime is one of them. In part 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind, or Vento Areo, please don't crucify me, we have a character meant to embody many elements that make up the Don's character, and he's not even the boss. Polpo is not only a character meant to take on the place of a typical boss, but his stand Black Sabbath is also a personification of a huge element in The Godfather, that being the movie's cinematography and its intense use of shadows. But to first put my focus on Polpo being the take on Corleone. Polpo's authority is the first thing in question. While he isn't the boss and is missing a rank or two, he's the first person that Giorno has to answer to in terms of the Mafia. He's also the first step and the man that you come to for involvement. Civilians can come to people like Bruno for help, but to get involved you have to come to Polpo and take your baby steps before you get on into the Mafia world itself. I also believe that Polpo is Araki's way of incorporating a Don Corleone-like character because he wouldn't be able to do so with the actual boss at hand. The next thing is trust, which is a huge belief for Corleone, both of them, and probably the only thing that Polpo truly stands by. Trust to Polpo is the only true defining thing of a person. Talent and intelligence mean nothing in comparison. To Corleone, it's truly what defines a relationship between both people. You can respect someone without trusting them, which is why he doesn't trust the aspect of respect, because that can go at any time. Respect comes in many forms, and comes with many reasons as to why it's given, be it age, skill, or anything. Trust is a personal tie, an indicator and a reason as to why you can be fine with the relationship that you and your person have because you trust them. If that trust was to ever be abused, then you get the same outcome for both Polpo and Corleone. Betraying what made and defined the relationship is something that calls for the worst punishment ever. Polpo believes that even God would permit murder, and Corleone isn't too far from that either. The final example here is surprisingly not a focus of character, but more so appearance. One huge thing that the two share are their dark eyes. Like I stated previously, the lighting cinematography is a huge element to The Godfather. It reinforces our idea of what characters represent and how truly involved they are. The movie's approach being a clear approach on what's morally right and wrong because those that are reinstated to be evil find themselves in many shadows, and those that are good are commonly found in the light. From dark to light, it's a death of a character because they're being exposed for who they truly are, and from light to dark, it's a development, and we see how far they fall into the darkness as the character progresses forward. Corleone finds himself always in the shadows, and any development on his character throughout the movie, we will always see him in the darkness. Be it in the purest form of darkness to a now grayed out version to show that he's not nearly as strong as he originally was. There's a lot to take from here, and when that's all adapted into Polpo, we can see a clear-cut answer. His eyes being a direct call to Corleone because he has black eyes. Not extremely black pupils, but instead his entire eyes are black and his pupils are red. He can never truly lose that darkness in his eyes because those are his eyes. It's who he is. Same reason why you won't see Corleone without any shadow at all, because he's completely engulfed in what represents evil. It's a side that he can never leave, but would never truly intend to, because that's also who he is. Now, I'd like to bring my attention to the shadows themselves, but not in The Godfather, instead the shadows present here in part 5. Remember what I had mentioned about Corleone being completely engulfed in the shadows? While I can't fully transfer that over into Polpo with actual shadows, Black Sabbath does that job and even more. Black Sabbath, the stand of Polpo, is a stand that's power lays in the shadows. The stand itself is found with massive strength the more that shadows are present, and its activation is actually the first step of its symbolism. It's no coincidence that Black Sabbath activates when the light, I hope that you guys can hear the quotes that I'm doing, goes out, and Black Sabbath is also destroyed by light. The lighter not being only a symbol of trust, but also represents a retainment of character. Giorno is meant to keep his light, I hope you guys can hear my fingers this time, for the entire 24 hours and hopefully not fall out of who he truly is. The thing is, Giorno's character is like the menu we see here in part 5. he encapsulates both sides. And from a Joestar and Brando sense, he's the embodiment of the best of both sides. The lighter may be a test of character, but Giorno answers to the test doesn't lay in the lighter, but instead his actions against Black Sabbath and Polpo. Now we're moving on from the activation to the fight itself. It's Giorno against Black Sabbath, but Black Sabbath is not only the stand itself, or Polpo, but instead a representation of the evil in the Mafia world, with evil holding symbolism in the shadows, and Black Sabbath's power being increased for when it's among even more shadows. It's a statement on the evil growing stronger for when it takes over. It's also insane that they even went further to just have this fight take place at sunset, since both sunrise and sunset are times where both night and day clash. But the final thing to make note is on the outcome of the fight. Giorno found that light was the true weakness to Black Sabbath. This goes back to what I had mentioned earlier with the transitions. Light to dark is a development, but dark to light is exposing the character, and in both examples of the Godfather and Golden Wind, they both lay in death. With Giorno finding the light to beat the darkness, it's a natural light that's forever present but interchanges with darkness at times, that being the sun. Giorno's character holding both the sun and the moon. His natural light being the determination and resolve for his character, but his darkness is the extent that he goes to carry out these beliefs. Which is why Giorno defeating Black Sabbath with light is an example of his power over evil, but the defeat of Black Sabbath is his development on becoming a true gangstar. Because not only is he defeating Black Sabbath, he's defeating Polpo, and it's shown that he's darker all for it. And I'll be making a point about this when talking about trust, but I need to talk about Polpo once again before doing so. Bringing back the idea of Polpo playing boss or just strong authority in general, a big indicator of this is how Polpo constantly puts himself over Giorno. Now obviously he's bigger than Giorno, but meeting Giorno at an eye level isn't something of interest because he sees himself higher than Giorno. Not only speaking because of position, but more so that he sees himself as higher than him in general. Speaking to him of what trust truly is. But it's clear that it's not what Polpo is looking for. Polpo is looking for an unwavering respect without looking to match the energy given. Because Polpo isn't a trustworthy man, nor does he believe in equality. If you're a higher rank, people answer to you. You're the one who can lead people, and he does exactly that with Black Sabbath. He gives everyone two paths, dictating whether or not someone follows a path of life or death due to the lighter. So Polpo is basically sending out an angel of judgment to everyone that plans to join the Mafia. A lighter lit for 24 hours or not doesn't matter to him. The potential member could have died, but does that matter to him? No, because he's unbothered, because his subordinates are expendable, which shows he really isn't trustworthy. Oh, and this is a postscript note because this actually took me looking more into the symbolism of the artwork itself, but let's count this as a point between boss and trust. This is actually on reasoning as why Black Sabbath is an automatic stand. Black Sabbath being bound to the lighter and blindly following the instructions of Polpo connects over to Corleone and the Godfather logo. The Godfather's level of control on their world was something like a puppeteer, with them organizing everything and everyone else blindly following. Makes sense on why Polpo and this Italian word specific to Sicily, where the Godfather originates from, pupparo, are reasonably similar, with pupparo meaning puppeteer or puppet master, and that's what I believe that Polpo is, or that's what he believes that he truly is, playing with recruits like puppets and believing that he's one allowed to do so. And now at this point the dots are connecting themselves. So while Polpo directly conforms to the naming with the Italian food that we see in part 5, Polpo through the symbolism comes out with an addition to his name. And thank you, Tails, for helping me out with find where pupparo comes from, because now that we have Polpo and Purpo, now we have pupparo with this Sicilian dialect. So thank you again. And the last thing to touch up on is trust. Respect is impersonal in both worlds, and can honestly even apply to our world depending on the person. Respect is a thing given to the stuff that I had mentioned earlier, and also stuff like position, skill, things along that line, but trust is a completely different area. Trust correlates to your own perspective, your own judgment, and connects to your beliefs. You can respect someone around the same position as you or higher, but you don't have to trust them at all. This is something we see be a huge theme when it comes to the first Godfather and the second. This was also something we see here in part 5, but that was a problem. Giorno had got his respect and trust mixed up when it came to Polpo. With Polpo's position, he trusted that Polpo knew the ropes and would have it in his best interest to be the one to guide Giorno, and also not do anything that he did through Black Sabbath, but that still happened. Giorno saw it as, if I don't take care of this lighter, I don't get into the gang. But letting that lighter go out is a betrayal of trust, which Polpo saw as punishable by death. Though the only thing that Giorno had to gauge originally is that Polpo said that trust is massively important. Of what had happened with Black Sabbath hurting an innocent bystander, his reaction shows that he couldn't believe that this is what Polpo truly meant. While this is Polpo's doing, Giorno full-on takes responsibility for what he does and how his involvement with the mafia got an innocent person killed. He's a man that wants to be someone that the people can trust, but he's betrayed that because Polpo. So then that trickles down into Giorno's dive into the darkness that is the mafia. But before I diverge from the topic of trust, I want to say that the second Godfather's take on trust isn't one that's closely tied into Part 5, but it's still interesting. Part 5 never had a case on true betrayal when it came to the immediate group. Some cases are like what had happened between Giorno and Polpo, but with different characters in higher positions, and a case or two that actually connects back into the event of betrayal in the past, but never present, but on a Giorno's descent. What we had seen with Black Sabbath and Polpo now matches on Giorno and begins to start turning him into the true gangstar that he wants to be. The increased presence of shadows now starts taking over Giorno to show his duality on his core beliefs on now carrying both light and darkness of the mafia. And that front that we had originally seen Giorno with isn't a front anymore because of how much malintent he holds for Polpo. It doesn't help that Polpo begins enabling Giorno unintentionally by telling him that even God would permit murder because of a betrayal of trust. Because not only is he giving Giorno initiative because of what he did, this means that Polpo either believes that he was allowed to play God or believes that he was able to be one that carries out God's actions. And I'm leaning towards the first one, obviously, because I wouldn't expect Polpo to be one of religion nor moral correctness for the second one. So now, Giorno plays Polpo's card, a man that was leading your paths towards either life or death. And Polpo took the darker one, the fight being over with the positions that we last see these two with the perspective on position, light, and darkness we had earlier. So now Polpo is the one exposed, laying flat, lower than Giorno, while Giorno lives as this standing contradiction, shining with his newfound darkness. Oh my goodness, thank you all for watching. Wow. I love doing videos like this, but it takes a reasonably large amount of time for how it's all made up, so I don't really know how often I can do this. And I hope you guys caught the last thing, because on positions, Polpo is now on the floor, Giorno stands up, it's been switched over and all that type of stuff, but I'm pretty sure you guys got it. And I'll be trying to do more of this. I'll think about it. I don't know, because it's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but I don't know. I really do like doing this because it's a lot more insightful stuff, and people don't really see me talk this way. But yeah. Hopefully I'll be able to do the Halloween special soon. I hope to do like at least like 3 videos of Halloween based stuff, or originally just like horror or anything. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. So thanks again, but until then, peace out and Godspeed.